BOMMAL hard 90. This guy is no joke, but I finally got it to work because of a few crucial things, and in today's video we're going to go over exactly that. Number one, decrease accuracy. When you get to this boss, you got to place decrease accuracy almost right away. In fact, right away, or else it's a wipe. So in this case, that's exactly what I do with a Yoshi. You also still need something like 500 resistance, right? So this guy apparently has almost 1k accuracy, therefore it's the only way this is going to work. Then by doing that, you see me here then being able to apply more debuffs, but getting resisted so that I don't get too many bombs back. I still get some of them because let's say my resistance is not perfect on some of these champions, but overall you gotta do that. Secondly, you want to bring some poisons. Forget about the bombs. Apparently it works best with a deflection set, as you guys will see with the gear in a little bit, but that's exactly what I do with a Balthazar. There are other champions you can use for this, but I decided to go with that one and I gave him a deflection set. Then as for survivability, you want to have something like Brogni, and I brought in Melga Steel Girdle. I tried with an AoE freeze champion to control the dread bombs. It just didn't work out with the champions that I had, so instead opted to go for just more survivability. You can handle the 2 dread bombs without freeze debuffs. You'll take 80% damage of your total HP on all champions, but then if you have enough shields and heals, you can then kind of mitigate the damage of the boss himself and the bombs from the boss himself. Okay, so that's what I decided to do. So Melga Steel Girdle was a kind of like last minute thing, and again, this is the only way that I got this to work. Okay, we also try to place some HP burns on the dread bombs, even though they get some kind of turn meter boost either when the HP burn is placed on them or when the HP burn ticks off the boss. It's kind of worded weird. I believe it's when the boss gets an HP burn tick, then it gives a 20% turn meter boost to the dread bombs, but to be honest, I want the little extra damage from the HP burn on the dread bombs to deal damage to the boss. So I decided to try and place them as often as I could with either Yoshi or with Brogni. What you also see me doing here is skipping the decreased accuracy debuff from Yoshi, which is on a 2-turn cooldown for when the boss is going to be just about ready to strip. Okay, so I'm paying attention to the turn count of his A3. Basically his next skill would be the strip, so I have to apply that decreased accuracy. All right, you can lose champions if you have a reviver like Melga Steel Girdle. So again, she's extremely clutch for this. She's very tanky, she has a lot of heals, she has shields, and she has a revive. So right there you see me going up against the boss and he's about to do his strip, which is not that skill right there, it's this one right here. All right, so you got to place that decreased accuracy right there and it needs to land. If it doesn't land, you will wipe. Later on to the fight, you'll see that I also need to place the decreased accuracy, but the 2 dread bombs are up. The problem with Yoshi is that you have 2 random hits. Therefore, if it doesn't land on the boss, it's a wipe, right? So a lot of RNG involved. I think I had 2 or 3 times that I had to repeat this, and I landed it on the boss every time. So very, very lucky in this run. We also want to place decreased attack, which I'm using Riho Bone Spear in this case because this guy hits really hard. So Riho is kind of unobtainable for most players. You might be able to work with the different champions, but make sure you have the decreased accuracy before you attempt to place any major debuffs from a champion like Riho Bone Spear, or else you're going to get all those bombs back at the same time. Okay, so pay attention to that. If you have low accuracy on some of your champions, because let's say you're aiming for only 500 resistance first, you can also work with the increased accuracy buff on your own team, which we also have on Yoshi. So Yoshi's pretty good for this, but he's also very RNG. So for the rest of the fight here, kind of the same concept. I'm just trying to pay attention, to the skill order of the boss. We're doing some A1s when we think it's not the right time. Like right here, if I decide to go for the HP burn like that without having decreased accuracy, I know I'm risking getting bombs on Balthazar, but because I have the deflection set, I figure I might reflect them as well. So I can deal with 2 bomb debuffs on any champion, but if it's more than that, you end up kind of wiping. So right there, there's the 1 decreased accuracy that we need to land on the boss from Yoshi, which we get, so that's great. And then it's about kind of like playing around with the skills that are going to heal you and like not kind of overlapping the shields from Melga and Brogni, so just trying to space them out basically, right? So kind of simple at this point, but it does take a little bit of understanding as to what you're doing. So going back into more shields right there from our Brogni, then we're doing some A1s because we don't have a choice. We lose our Balthazar right there, but that's not the end of the world. Look at Melga with her massive heals. She's also in a couple immortal pieces. And then the guy here, I believe, is not about to strip, so we have a little bit of time to cycle back around. Here it's risky. If I decide to apply the A2 from our Riho Bone Spear, I'm going to trigger a bunch of bombs back, right? Because he doesn't have decreased accuracy, so I decide to skip that. Right here we go for an HP burn off the A1 of Brogni. We don't have a choice, but he has low accuracy. I would suggest you put low accuracy on Brogni unless you want to try with a little bit more accuracy, so then you have a chance of placing that HP burn, but that's risky because, again, you will get every once in a while the bomb back. Right here, back into a revive from our Melga Steel Girdle. Great. Then we have decreased accuracy, so I judge that it's a decent time to try and place all the debuffs. We get literally 0 off the A2 from Riho Bone Spear. Not quite sure. Maybe I should have waited until I had the increased accuracy buff from Yoshi, but I want that decreased attack up almost all the time. And then he's about to go into a strip, but we have decreased accuracy, so we should be able to survive at this point, is what I'm telling myself. So again, I'm really slow doing this. We're doing it on stream. This is probably like my 40th try. Just trying to figure out what's the best order. Maybe I made a couple mistakes, but overall, you know, it ended up working, right? So just trying to break it down here, sorry, for you guys. And then we're going back into more heals. So big shield right there. A little bit of a heal from the A1 off Bad Alcazar, but it is very, very small. I wouldn't count on the heal from the A1. It's more about continuous heals and like actual HP percent heals from our Melga, for example, okay? Then here, I believe we're going to not do the A3 because we already have the shield from Melga. So then I think I decide to skip that and go for an A1 on with Brogni. And then I think I'm trying to also go for the Dread Bombs in this case, right? I want to place, again, that HP burn. We don't get it on this one. That's all right. Then here we have a little bit of time before we can come back to our decreased accuracy. But because it's 3 turns and it's a 2-turn cooldown on Yoshi, I decide to go for it anyway. I'm not concerned about placing it on the Dread Bombs like I said before. Here we don't have a choice. It's going to be an A1 on the boss. Coming up next is our Bad Alcazar. Again, this is the only one that I find that it's not the end of the world if I try to play some poisons while I don't have decreased accuracy. I know, sorry, I'm gonna get the bombs back, but I have a chance at deflecting them. So again, that's kind of like a part of the strategy here, right? So then back to an A1. Some bomb hits right there on the boss, which don't deal a whole lot of damage, to be honest, and we lose more champions. We gotta wait a turn before we can revive them with our Melga Steel Girdle. So back to an A1 right there. Then we're back to our Brogni, trying to extend just whatever I have left, thinking it might help us anyway. Trying to apply the decreased accuracy, which we do get. Beautiful. Finally, back to Melga, revive our champions. Okay, A1 from our Brogni. Don't have a choice at this point. This is the farthest I've been so far in this run, right? So I'm really taking my time because all the other runs barely made it past 75% of his HP. Back into a big heal right there. Then we're going to, I believe, heal in this case and place a block debuffs. The block debuffs is kind of useful for the HP burn portion of his kit, but overall it doesn't do much because you can't block the bombs, right? So it does help, don't get me wrong, it does help, but it's more about the heals that I'm looking for with our Bad Alcazar, Riho, and Melga, and then the shields, of course, with Brogni and Melga. Okay, so here we decide to go, I believe, for an A1 on the boss. At this point, I'm like just trying to get a couple more HP burns on him. Here, this is the funny part, we once again have to land the decreased accuracy on the boss. Okay, so 2 random hits, and it needs to land or else it's a wipe. Literally, at this point, we've gotten this far. If this doesn't happen, it is going to be a wipe, and we do luckily get it. And then that's pretty much it. It's going to seal the deal for this run. So we're going to place a couple more debuffs. We're going to take 2 more Dread Bombs hits, but we are going to survive them. And then it's a win. So here we go. We've got a couple more skills to do. Increase accuracy again. All right, there's a hit, there's a bomb, there's a bomb. So you see what I mean? If you have good shields, you can take the 2 bombs. You can take that hit from the boss and the 2 bombs if you have at least 1 good, decent shield. But you got to cycle back around to a lot of heals very fast, which is why you got to overdo it with those types of champions. So here we go, just about done. And this is going to be a very long run. But again, it's my first time getting it to work. I suppose I could do this a little bit faster. So we are sitting on 129 turns, which is overall, pretty decent. So yeah, we finally got it, but it took a lot of tries, and I played around with a lot of champions. This is the only team that I got to work so far. I have a couple of ideas for other champions you could use in replacement of these champions. For example, Riho Bone Spear. Maybe it could work with Rector Draft. I do believe we see an example down here from Bliss How. Anox is a great champion for rocking the fat. There's a couple more, so I will make a list in a different video of possible champions you could use for this. And then as for the normal, let me show you how different it is, because you can afford to do a glass cannon build, right? You can go in there and nuke pretty hard pretty quickly. Now, you can bring bombs, but you can bring a champion like Ninja, and it makes this relatively easy to do. I've still brought in Yoshi, but it might not be needed with the stats that I have on my champions, which you'll see in a second. But overall, this is the team that I used, guys, and it was fairly easy once you figured out how to properly line up the skills. I think that was the hardest part. Here's my Riho Bone Spear with a whole lot of speed, decent amount of resistance. Don't forget, with the decreased accuracy, we're probably around 400 to 450 accuracy on this guy, so I think I'm all right. But I also have the aura from Brogni, the plus 60. Okay, so I'm roughly between 450 and 500 resistance for all of these champions, but some of them also need a lot of accuracy, which is what we see here on Riho, and her speed is just above the boss, so I can cast a few debuffs right before he takes his first turn. All the skills are done on Riho, and then we have these masteries right here for the time being. I might optimize this, we shall see. Then we have for our Yoshi, kind of like immortal pieces, just stats overall. This is another one that's really hard to do. If you can afford to do immortal pieces on these champions, it will make your life a lot easier. Yes, we have a lot of heals, continuous heals, heal A1s with Bad Alcazar, but it's just not enough. You need even more heals. At least that's how I found it to be the most easy. And then we have 446 resistance on this guy, 312 accuracy, and again, faster than the boss. You have to walk in there with your decreased accuracy champion. You got to land that right away, or else forget it. It's a wipe. All the skills are done. Masteries, we have Unshakable for the tier 6. Up next, we're going to do our Bad Alcazar, which has a deflection set. So shout out to Murder Inc. for this part. It does apparently work. Even if you have the block debuffs buff and you apply the poisons, you're still going to get the bombs, right? So the way to counter this is to have either really high accuracy, resistance of your own, and have the decreased accuracy debuff, right? And the deflection set. That's the only way you're going to prevent some of the bombs from landing on you. So you might resist one, you might reflect one back, but you're never going to fully block them. Okay, so that's something to pay attention to. So overall, I decided to put high resistance anyway. You might think you want low resistance, but the problem is that if, let's say, you get all the bombs back to back, and then you get the 2 dread bombs to attack and then the boss to attack, you're most likely going to lose this champion. Unless you have a reviver, it's really hard to come out of this, and I do need him as my DPS champion. Bad Alcazar needs to stay alive because he's my poisons. As for the masteries, we have War Master for the tier 6. And then into this right here, which was for my clan boss build. And again, all the skills are done on this champion. Up next, we're going to do our Brogni. So really important here as well for the extra shields. We have 255 speed, maybe a little bit too much, 471 resistance. Really low on the accuracy. There is an HP burn on the A1, so you might want a little bit more. Every once in a while, you should try and place an HP burn on the dread bombs. Personally, I think it's worth it because the HP burn tick is going to deal a little bit more damage to the boss. The thing with them is that if they get an HP burn tick, I don't know if it's them or the boss, it's kind of worded weird. The dread bombs are going to get a 20% turn meter boost. But like I said, you got to deal with the bombs anyway, so if they tick faster and like your skill rotation is all right, you can handle this. So I figured just the more HP burns, the better, right? As for the masteries, we have this right here. I did have to respec him to remove Evil Eye. You want 0 turn meter control on all your champions, no Evil Eye whatsoever, or you will create more dread bombs and that will cause you a wipe. You cannot handle 3 dread bombs, okay? It's just not possible unless you have the freeze debuff, but in this case, we did not have it. And finally, the last minute build on the account on the test server was Melga Steel Girdle. We went with high immortal or high resistance here as well, immortal pieces, and then some speed pieces to give us as much speed as possible. You want to be at a 1-to-1 ratio with this guy. Do not go in there with champions at 175 speed or less. You're just going to get lapped, and then your skill rotation is not going to be all right. I would suggest 220 or more. and a couple key champions above 250, so you can beat this boss. 460 resistance plus the aura, and then when we get decreased accuracy, she's in no danger of getting some debuffs. You don't care about the accuracy on this champion. High HP if you can, so you have bigger shields, right, with this right here. And then you also have a revive on this champion. She is absolutely clutch for this. She made it possible. And then for the Masteries, we have kind of like an arbiter-ish build here where we're going for timely intervention. We had enough resistance on our gear, therefore I didn't go for unshakable. And then we have Cycle of Revenge, which I think is also great for her. Cycle of Magic, if you can get that occasional proc. Spirit Haste when your champions are dying, so I think this is great overall. So there you have it. My BOMMAL hard floor 90 finally completed. And again, you only need to do this guy once, so I would probably gear for this and then take the gear apart, put it back on my regular champions. I will be farming the Dark Fae instead. So make sure you subscribe, hit the like button. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next video.